This review has been approved by Lord Carnage. Welcome to Classic Game Room for the review of the SEGA Genesis Arcade Motion game system, which plays SEGA Genesis games with motion controls or some games with motion control. I don't know. Color me skeptical. Finally, after all these years, someone figured out what the SEGA Genesis had been missing all along: motion controls. Enter the SEGA Genesis Arcade Motion game console from AtGames. This is a battery-powered motion-sensing console with interactive sports and SEGA TV games. That's sort of shaped like Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's blue. It has wireless controllers, 15 SEGA games, 7 interactive sports games, and 18 bonus arcade games. Plus, you can play more with an SD card from download. Wow, welcome to the future of the SEGA Genesis. A future that terrifies me. Because I've been less than impressed with most of these aftermarket SEGA Genesis game consoles, they're typically subpar, to say the least. And actual SEGA hardware is always the way to go, but I'm giving this thing a fair chance to prove that it's not complete garbage. At first glance, it looks pretty cheap. It looks like one of these game systems that could have had any game or logo stamped on it. And for this one, they just chose the SEGA Genesis, filled it with a few games and some cheap motion controllers. Here you go. I've reviewed some other AtGames consoles, and while they have a lot of games, the sound quality is usually horrible, but they serve a purpose: lots of games for cheap. And this one gives you the addition of motion controls. But don't be fooled, you're not going to play most of the Genesis or Mega Drive games with the motion controls. Now, it's pretty obvious what this was aiming for: the incredibly successful and wildly popular Nintendo Wii. The controllers are almost exact replicas, albeit much, much cheaper. There's no HDMI to be found. Oh no, you'll have mono audio and composite video. State of the art in like 1985. Here's your black and white instruction manual getting you started with the games, including Mr. Balls. At first glance, I read that as Mr. Balls gets caught in a mystery machine. Sounds painful, but hey, none of these real SEGA game systems play Mr. Balls. Not like the Genesis Arcade Motion. To start it up, you push the on-off switch and the AtGames logo comes up. Pair your controller, which I already did. Alright, we've got 3 exciting options here to choose from: SEGA Mega Drive games, arcade games, and SD card, as well as interactive sports games. Let's start with the Mega Drive. It's got Arrow Flash. Alright, that's a point in its good column. Crackdown, that's a decent game. Like the other AtGames consoles I've used, the games play more or less like the Genesis originals. It plays fairly well, looks good on screen. You'll hold the controller horizontally like the Wii controller to play these games, and the controller is wireless. But as I predicted, the sound quality is downright terrible. Presumably, if you see this thing out there, you're probably going to buy it for the motion controls though, right? It's like a Wii, except a whole lot less expensive. Yes. And that makes complete sense because it's a whole lot less good. This is such a desperate, half-assed attempt to recreate the excellent Wii Sports that fails miserably. This game robbed me of a strike. That was definitely a strike. This is clearly aimed at a younger audience, but if you love your children, buy them a real SEGA Genesis or a real Nintendo Wii. In fact, most of the Genesis games that you can get on here, if not all of them, are available on the Virtual Console. This is how I normally fight, so I'm right at home with this. Ow! Get away from me. But wait, there's more. What about the arcade games? We still haven't played Mr. Balls yet. Fish Story, blah blah blah. Mr. Balls. Derek!
Hi, Mark.
Do you want to come out and play a game with me called Mr. Balls?
Who reads the instructions?
Well, we have to read the instructions to Mr. Balls. because I can't figure out how to play Mr. Balls. I have space for one ball that I need to fill with a ball. How do I
Hit that ball.
which ball should I hit? Release or lock onto one of your balls. Those who are at your left, right, above, and below switch the state. If they were free, they would get lock. If they were lock, they would get free. There are many initial machine configurations to be solved, including that one which is random. Now I've done it. I've gotten my balls out of alignment. I hate it when that happens. I've got a big classic game room shout out and thank you to send to Brian from Canton, Ohio. Thank you for sending Mr. Balls.
Shall we play
baseball, bowling, casual fishing, and the Sega Genesis Arcade Motion game system to the show.
It's literally called casual fishing.
Casual fishing, just laid back fishing.
As opposed to like really serious fishing.
I just throw some dynamite in the pond and wait for them to float. There's a feature where you can also download games and put them onto an SD card from their website or something, or you can just save your money and not buy this. Spend it on a real Sega Genesis instead. I'm getting a workout.